Hello and welcome to Randomer Nintendo 35 for Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. I am one of the three hosts you'll be hearing today. I am Jason. I don't know why I'm so about it, but to my virtual left is Angel.
I'll balance that out with
Mellow.
lower energy.
All right.
But yeah, I am Angel.
And to my virtual right is Kevin with an energy level of
Ayo.
Okay, I don't know what AO translates to as an energy level, but it sounded like you had some enthusiasm. And for everyone listening, if you're listening to Days Goes Live, it is Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase Eve. So I have my mushroom and fire flower cookies out for Mario to come overnight through the chimney and deliver his gifts. How do you guys prepare for a Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase or any Nintendo Direct?
I guess I haven't since I stopped watching them live.
This one's available on demand starting at 6 a.m. It is not live.
I didn't even know there was one coming out.
It just announced this afternoon.
Even a partner showcase. This is literally the first I hear about it.
Only partner showcase, so no big first party things. But yes, it is coming.
I think, yeah, I don't know. I guess I prepare by just... I might just remember... I might try to remind myself to text you or call you to ask if it happened already. Or when it's happening, just to as a reminder. That way I could just, watch it on YouTube at some point after. So that's about the little preparation that goes into it.
That counts. Do you make similar preparations for the developer directs from Xbox, the stay at plays from PlayStation? Do you text equivalent Jasons in those spheres?
There are, but it's the same, if not less.
Fair.
I definitely don't watch the Xbox ones, and I don't really watch the PlayStation ones unless, I just want to have something in the background and it happens to be on.
Right.
But, yeah.
What about you, Kevin?
Yeah, so pretty detached overall from that stuff. Maybe Nintendo's a little... I mean, Nintendo's is the only one that I will, go oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to watch it at some point, as soon as I can.
Right. I mean, in part because you are on a podcast that has Nintendo in its name, so I imagine that factors a smidge into that.
Well, and they have the things I care about
right, yeah.
the most overall.
Yeah. What about you, Kevin? Do you usually catch these things live, mentally prepare, or is it kind of just you see it when you see it after the fact?
Nope.
Oh, that game's coming out?
Nope. I don't do anything to prepare, and I barely do any following up on it unless Twitter is crazy. So
that is fair. Well, like I said, I put out these fictional cookies to a fictional person who comes to fictionally eat them like it's Christmas. So, it sounds like I do the most work. But how you guys doing? Besides the Direct coming up, what's new with you guys?
So, overall good, but I just have to bring up, just because I guess it started to become more prominent lately, but a couple minutes ago, I sent Jason a message. It was basically an ad that just came up for Duolingo on Instagram as I was just kind of scrolling through Reels or just watching Reels. And yeah, it was just super random. Literally had nothing about it that really had to do with language unless you just they're just continuing this, butt joke that they have going. And this came after, basically, I've seen Duolingo ads before, but they're typically, flashy little animations. Here, go download Duolingo, learn language, blah, blah, blah. But then this year, after the Super Bowl, or during the Super Bowl, randomly caught a 15-second ad of, it's just the owl mascot, because they have a tiny little green owl, facing away from the camera, sitting down. Its butt inflates until it explodes into a smaller version of himself. And it just says no butts or something like that. Because, do your daily training. And so, that seemed weird. I use Duolingo here and there, so, it caught my eye right away. But I don't necessarily recommend it if you're just trying to learn a language by only using that. It's definitely more of a supplemental thing. But I guess 10-second Duolingo review right there. But then after that, I guess I've just started getting more Duolingo ads. And I don't know if a lot of these were from this year or randomly, but yeah, suddenly they all became very random, some aggressive, some just weird.
One with a Zelda reference, by the way.
Yeah, like this one that had a Zelda reference. There's another one that said Japanese or break your knees if you like, don't do your Japanese daily session. And then there was like another one where the bird basically was gonna kill someone because they weren't doing their Spanish. And of course, the one I sent to Jason where it was basically the bird trying to get um I guess butt implants?
A
Is that what you
Brazilian
call them?
butt lift from Dr. Miami, who's a well-known plastic surgeon. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the marketing is clearly working. We're talking about it, or I passing it along in during a podcast, and yeah, I it's whatever they're doing. I mean, it's definitely the thing I remember the most from the Super Bowl I barely watched. So
Did you
yeah,
see the Michael Cera commercial? I love the Michael Cera commercial.
I watched it after you told
The
me
Cera
about it
V. Yeah.
a couple days later.
Yeah.
It was fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one was funny to me because I could have sworn that Michael Cera or like his people put out a statement like a couple of days before the Super Bowl saying, "Hey, we're not involved with this at all."
Yeah.
And then that commercial then comes out with him actually starring it. I was like, "Oh, that's a clever marketing trick." Like, have the person say, "No, I'm not doing anything about this at all," and then actually have him show up. Just as a gimmick. So
Yeah. I mean,
that
the
was a little
first
funny.
part of that saga was they arranged for photos to be taken of him in a Rite Aid, writing Michael's above the Sarah part of Sarah V's logo and crossing out the V on random bottles of the product at Rite Aid or something in New York. And then people were like, is this for the Super Bowl? So then they put out a statement like, he's not doing a Super Bowl ad. He's just writing his name on things. And then the ad came after that. Yeah.
Yeah, really smart of
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, some of the innuendo in that ad, not innuendo, but some of the like, I'm surprised they said some of the things they said in that commercial and were able to say it. But yeah, it was a good ad, I thought. But yes, I feel like Duolingo's leaning all the way in on like meme marketing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and even in the comments, like there were a lot of people. Actually, that was pretty fun, just because the Duolingo marketing team was responding to them in very aggressive ways. Um, yeah, and it was just weird. Like it gave me, like Sonic vibes from back in the day.
Yeah, which
Just
spawned out of
cranked up to a more, I guess it could be in the word aggressive, but yeah, to a more like angry degree.
it's like Wendy's
That's
really kicked
interesting.
that all off, like Wendy's Twitter account back in the day. Like this,
Was that first and then Sonic?
yeah, yeah,
I'm starting to feel the burnout from that, where I always see people screenshotting like TikTok comments or somewhere on the web where a brand will ask a question and then other brands will answer that.
Mhm.
And it's like a screenshot and the comments always like we're living in hell. And to me, I've always like shut up, it's fine, like it's not hurting anybody. Yeah, of course it's a little parasocial, but like who cares?
Yeah,
But I am starting
sure.
to actually hit my wits end with it too, where I'm like, maybe this is starting to get a little grating. Granted, it took me about an extra year to feel that, but I am starting to get there for sure.
There's a part of it, which not to sound like I feel like I'm old in my mid-30s, which means Angel, you're old, and Kevin, you're almost old. But there is a part of it where I'm wondering if we're just slowly detaching from like the culture a little, like not with the brand specifically, but like with Duolingo, where Angel's like, just coming out of nowhere. Like, why are they doing this? Like, I don't know. Like, first it was the halftime show that was like basically the first millennial oldies concert, which I loved, by the way. But it was basically millennials oldie like no song Usher played was after like 2007. Like literally the finale was 2001, I think, or 2003. Like it was a 21-year-old song. And like there's a clip of like the Nickelodeon version of the halftime show where they had the guy that does SpongeBob's voice doing live commentary as SpongeBob. At one point he was explaining to the kids, hey kids, if you're wondering who this man on stage is, he's the guy whose music your mom and dad met to when they were dancing in the club. And I'm like, excuse me, your mom and dad met to? It's like there's definitely like an aging out that's happening, but I do wonder if some of the like brand energy on social media and some stuff like Duolingo's move is like catering to kind of more of younger than us, and we're starting to get into that group where it's like, oh, this is weird. Like, why is a brand doing this? While the young folk are like, oh my god, it's so funny. The Duolingo owl threatened to murder me, type of thing. Like maybe I'm giving too much credit to the marketers by saying maybe there's targeted a different demo, but that I have had that thought cross my mind with multiple things of late. So I wonder if it's just us getting old to some degree.
Yeah. Yeah, what I did like about Sonic's, at least that really worked for me, is the fact that, it was like Sonic's Twitter, not so much like Sonic the Hedgehog, like game account.
Right.
where, I mean, he's already a fictional character, so it was basically just like role playing as that character.
Mm-hmm.
Where something like when I see responses from like Starbucks or something, it's like, well, I don't really have like a face to Starbucks. It's just
The mermaid lady
like that
on the logo. She's talking to you directly. I don't know. Yeah.
and yet it's never felt like
No,
that.
I don't think that's what they're going for. No. The weird one to me is
Yeah.
when brands hop on like music stuff. Like some artist is like teasing a new album and like, Dunkin' Donuts is like Yas Queen or something. It's just like, what? You're a donut. What are you doing? Like, why do you care about this new song? You know what I mean? Like that's the one where I'm kind of like, that's where I feel the most out of touch. Or like Hertz Rent-A-Car is so excited for like Act 2 of Renaissance from Beyonce. It's just like, why does Hertz Rent-A-Car care? Why are they in the comments? Like that's the ones where it gets a little weird to me. But yeah, but I get what you mean. How about you, Kevin? How have you been?
I've been alright. My work season is about to start, so I'm dreading that a little bit. But the good thing is that as our season starts, I immediately go on vacation, so I'll be
so
fine
you'll be
there.
refreshed and ready when you get back, hopefully.
Maybe.
You're like, nope. Or you'll be super tired from having such a great time. We're partying it up around the world.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this episode, it's been a while since we've had one of these. I feel like this episode is all video games. Kind of a throwback to how the Random Channel podcast used to be a little. So we got 2 games to talk about, and we got some industry stuff to talk about, like what's going on the Nintendo side of things. Switch 2, maybe, Angel, you might win that bet after all. It might be coming next year, it looks like. You won $1 from me. And also, like, Xbox and PlayStation, a lot of interesting things going on.
It was always obvious.
Well, I mean,
but anyway.
Yeah. But before we get into that, we might as well kick the cookie cutter of the old show. Let's start with at least one of the things we're playing. I see Sonic Superstars is on here. I don't know who to... I think that's you, Angel. Should I attribute that to you?
That is Kevin, actually.
No,
so
is it?
My favorite series, Sonic.
Go on. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he's always been good. I'm a huge liar. I've always loved Sonic. His games have never been mediocre at best.
Never. No.
Never.
The Sonic cycle is not real. It's propaganda. It's
exactly.
Gold all the way through. Yeah.
Pretty much. So Sonic Ultra Stars.
Ultra Stars.
That's
Yes.
that's. I'm pretty sure that's the name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm running out of things to say.
All right. So
you went further than I thought you would,
Superstars.
Kevin, to be fair.
Yeah, Thursday, that's pretty good. Yeah, Superstars. My brother and I started playing. I think around the same time that we started playing Mario Wonder, because we got them. I think like on the same day actually.
They came out the same week, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's been interesting playing both of them simultaneously, like kind of switching between them, because they definitely have a very different feel to each other. I mean, obviously, like Sonic's is way more momentum based. Mario's is way more, I would say, fast reaction time. But that's not always
Precision,
true
I
in
guess?
Sonic.
Yeah, I'd just say like precision
Yeah.
platforming. Yeah, and even then, like light
precision
precision,
platforming.
because it's no Super Meat Boy or anything. But
Yeah, and yeah, Sonic Superstars is kind of a weird one. Like, it just has very inconsistent level design, but not necessarily that it's just like it's bad because it's not, it's inconsistent, therefore it's bad. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say. It's just that things change, yeah, like from level to level in almost like very dramatic ways, and sometimes I feel it works out well, and other times it just feels like, damn, this is a really cool idea that just needed a little extra tweaking, or like if it wasn't for this extra factor, yeah, it would have been super awesome.
does it feel,
like,
when you say that, does it feel like they had to rush it out for the holidays, or does it feel like it was just like a bad, rude idea that they didn't fully flesh out? Does it feel like it's missing, or does it feel like it was just they went the wrong direction?
it just feels like not fully fleshed out,
Okay.
or sometimes gimmicky, because sometimes they're really cool. Other times, like, I mean, like 2 examples. Like, there's this level where you're like in cyberspace, and you pass through these beams, and then you're like suddenly a jellyfish, and you're like kind of moving around through like an obstacle race, and then in the next minute you pass through another gate, and you turn into a cyber mouse, and then you're like controlling yourself that way, and then you turn to like a voxel version of yourself, and then obviously the level has its own gimmicks. Or in another level, you could suddenly jumping into a pod and then doing like a 2D shooter, like Gladius or something, like a top-down shooter.
Mm-hmm.
Like they definitely play with a lot of genres, and there are some levels that, especially the last level, which I would say overall the game isn't that hard, especially because if you're playing with other people, as long as one person's alive, they can revive the other, and so on and so forth. But the problem with this one, that's just kind of the problem with all the modern multiplayer 2D platformers that, the new Super Mario Bros. Series, for all the criticisms it gets, did actually feel like I was playing with someone else, because, you could bump into each other, you could pick each other up, you could jump off of each other. Mario Wonder got rid of all that.
Yeah, I was about to
so
say.
it's like you're just playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now it's like you're basically just playing two people are playing a single player game together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what this one does as well, except it does it at least it's a little better than wondering that every character, has their own ability and they can play off of each other sometimes. Like, Tails could grab the partner character and fly off with them. And I think that actually might be the only example. So, not much better. But otherwise, yeah, like the games are the levels are, I would say, like a medium difficulty. Like there are some tough obstacles sometimes, other times that you're just kind of blazing through it. But the last level, damn, not only was it just like super fun, but also super challenging. And it almost felt like it had some level of cohesion that like some of the other levels missed, even though they had really great themes sometimes. Like, I don't know, it's just a really odd game. Like, I would say that I liked it, but I wouldn't say that I loved it. But, the 3D visuals, the animations were all fun. The bosses were also kind of all over the place. Some were ridiculously easy, others were kind of tough. And then you also have your Chaos Emerald powers that, either instantly kill something or help you reach a higher platform, or are just completely irrelevant half the time. But, a lot of ideas shoved into this 2D platformer that, I don't know, I feel like if they, gave it another go, it could be a lot better, or it would be really great.
It sounds like they didn't center around a
But
single hook besides, hey, it's 2D Sonic again. Like they have all these
yeah,
ideas, and then and to be fair, Mario Wonder had a bunch of ideas that they kind of
but
latched
they all
in
feel
with
like
the
they're
Wonder
tied to
Seed.
each
Yeah,
other.
exactly. Yeah, they all kind of they were all like on a string connecting each other through the Wonder Seed. This sounds like it just kind of
Like
haphazard.
it feels like it was developed by a bunch of different teams that didn't communicate with each other.
Oh,
So like the flow of from level to level like never feels quite right.
interesting.
Like it's not that it feels bad. It's just you get this like weird feeling throughout. But otherwise, a lot of nods to the Sonic franchise and the character's lore. Like you could play as a rabbit version of Sonic. That, for those that don't know, was the original concept for Sonic before he became a hedgehog. So they have that model in there. As well as you could play as a Lego Sonic that looks really hilarious, and a Lego Tails or a Lego Knuckles. You can make Eggman Lego. The final boss with Eggman is also super awesome and really challenging, but it's kind of like, the rest of the game was not this challenging. So, Sonic Superstars, if you like your 2D Sonics, you enjoy it. If you don't, it's probably not gonna change your mind.
If you had to rank it against like Advance or Rush or any other like more modern generations,
Oh man, I love the
2Ds.
Rush, and I mean Advance and Rush specifically. I feel like are like my favorite versions of the 2D formula.
Rush
Both
was really good
in their own respective way.
Yeah.
Rush is awesome, and Advance just has a lot of nuance with just like the way the characters can run their abilities, and just the level design in general too. Like those feel like true sequels that I feel don't get enough love. The Advance series.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
They really should remake those because like through all the, I guess, the renaissance that 2D Sonic has had for a little while now. Not once do they ever mention the Rush series, and that one because you're basically playing as modern Sonic in 2D.
Yeah,
like that's where his design is from. Like you get the rail grinding and the home attack and other little things, but it's still very much its own 2D flavor. I don't know.
That one's gonna be hard for them to re-release because unless they do it on like smartphones because it was so vertical. Because it actually is one of the few games that really used the dual screens as one
Advance?
vertical. No, you said Rush.
No, Advance.
Oh, I thought you said Rush.
Yeah, I could have sworn you said Rush.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe, but I meant Advance.
Advance they could redo. I mean, Advance, like, they could put it on Nintendo Switch Online. They could do a bundle like they did with
I
Mega
mean,
Man
both of
Battle
them deserve more
Network
love,
Collection. There's so many ways they could bring that back. 'Cause there's 3 of them,
but
right?
there's just so much less love for Advance, I feel, because I never see that
Yeah.
reference
We are in
anywhere.
early 2000s nostalgia era, like I was saying about Usher. So, I mean, there are a bunch of Game Boy Advance and early DS games that are getting compilations again. It's not out of the question. They brought back Generations and threw Shadow in there. It's not out of the question for them to maybe do Advance as a quick way to make
No,
some
but
money.
these are Game Boy Advance exclusives, though. All of those have been multi-platform.
Well,
Maybe that's the thing.
maybe. I don't know. Then they can put them on Switch Online. I don't know. I'm just saying. Like, Capcom found a way with
And
Battle
yet they
Network.
haven't.
I know. But they could. And they should.
Yeah.
If you're out there, Sega.
But yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about Sonic Superstars.
That's fair. Should we, it's kind of a bummer it's not as good as some of the others, but it sounds like you had at least some fun in there, in the mix.
Oh yeah. It was definitely we had fun. You know, it was cool seeing Fang, the character, come back. Like I said, the animations were really charming, and the model just looked really great. You know, yeah, we had a good time, but it definitely didn't leave us with like, damn, that was like amazing. I mean, also the levels used to collect the Chaos Emeralds are really quirky and fun. I really like them. You're basically swinging around like Tarzan through a bunch of little spheres, and you know, it's timing based, and the control switches back and forth between you and your teammates, so you kind of have to be ready for the pass or the baton pass. So yeah, there's a lot of potential. It's like if Sonic Lost World. It's like if that one had one more game to improve on everything that needed improving, because you know it was already pretty great, but it just felt like it just needed something more.
Right.
Or even like Sonic Colors, like Sega has that problem of like never sticking to something to improve it. They just move on to
They have a
some
new
other wild idea
hook
they have.
with every single one, or tried to.
Yeah. And like Nintendo, like I mean, at least with Mario, like they feel like they're diverging a lot, but they're only like just tweaking like the core formula like very slightly with each game. It's usually the visual aesthetic that makes it look different.
And that's only for some of them. I mean, the new Super Mario Bros. Series had the same visual aesthetic for like 15 years.
Yeah.
Or 12 years or something. Yeah.
And that's why we started to notice.
Exactly, because they did it for so long. Here's a question about Sonic before we move on. The physics. That was a hot topic before Superstars came out, where the physics are right, the physics are wrong. Where do you land on the physics of Sonic's inertia and movement? And did it feel good to you, or did it feel, like I've seen some people say, it feels sluggish? I thought it was fine when I demoed it at Comic-Con, but where do you land on it?
There was like a couple instances, mainly during the final boss, where how slowly they get to max speed was getting a little annoying, but it was like more in like it's like, oh man, I didn't account for this, or like that's on me. Like, because I also can't really imagine the game without it. Like I feel like that's part of what makes a Sonic game a Sonic game, the fact that you have to actually account for how fast you're going in case you need to stop. And you know, if you're able to keep up your momentum and dodge the obstacles or find great paths that don't stop you, like you get to keep that high speed. So it's almost like it makes the speed feel that much more rewarding, because you know you have to earn that thing by getting through your momentum gaining.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
But yeah, but I like it.
Is
So
this
question-
the true
It just
Sonic the Hedgehog 4?
They did do a Sonic the Hedgehog
Wait, what?
4.
Is this the
At one
true
point.
Sonic the
Oh, the
Hedgehog
true.
4?
That's what you're saying.
Oh, well, I thought the true Sonic Shop 4 was Sonic Mania.
Oh, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, that one was
Because
definitely
that had
well
original
received.
levels as well, original plot and whatnot.
And great little
But-
animated cinematic.
But yeah, honestly, I should mention actually, yeah, man, I almost stopped talking about this game without addressing the biggest problem that basically this game got a pass because it's a Sonic game. But I could see everything I said it just now, you know, it's true.
Okay.
But I would argue that what I'm about to say like basically makes it or breaks it will make it or break it. Will be the thing that makes it or breaks
He
it.
does not kiss a
And-
human in this
oh my-
one.
Damn it.
No, it's the freaking camera. Jesus Christ, it's camera.
Oh, no.
So many times. It's like it feels like it's random who it follows. Basically, the camera only locks onto one person. So whoever it decides is like the main character, that's who it's gonna follow.
In this
So
day and
everyone else
age,
pretty much. What's up?
in this day and age,
Oh,
they couldn't make it. The Lego games back on
They
PS2 would
couldn't
split the.
Yeah, or scale it to just the
Yeah.
width
yeah,
of the
like
view.
yeah, you could either scale it Smash Brothers style, where it just like kind of finds the center of where both of you are at and keeps it there. But or give a split screen. This game needed to be in split screen because it's so easy to get separated. Like, and especially because because of the momentum gaining or the momentum gain that we just mentioned, Sonic has like a drop dash, so he could just like jump and then as soon as he lands, he could like tap the dash button and then he'll like basically immediately go at full speed. Everyone else has to like, do the revving, which, could be a little slower, or in most cases, it can be faster if you were already standing still, but if you were walking, it takes a little while to like come to a complete stop and then do it. So basically, half the times, if someone's playing as Sonic, they're going to run ahead and you're going to go off screen, and then you have to press X to spawn again in the middle of Sonic. And half the time, whenever you spawn in, sometimes you automatically get hit, or sometimes if you don't have rings, you just automatically die, which has happened a ton of times. And there are many times also where we thought like maybe it's just gonna follow whoever's furthest ahead, and that should work, but nope. Sometimes it follows the person that's behind. So if the person ahead, takes the right way, but the person behind takes I guess it's a different route, it's gonna cut off the person going the right way, and then they'll warp to the other person that shouldn't have been the locked on camera.
I
So yeah, the camera definitely killed us many times,
That's
and
terrible.
I think we were just able to tolerate it. But it definitely felt like, why the hell was this made this way? Like, it's basically it felt like it was designed as a single player game, and then it was 100% done, and they're like, all right, make it multiplayer. They're like, what? Like, none of these levels are designed for that. Like, yeah, this is yeah.
I
The multiplayer aspect hurts the game, which is funny because that's kind of what the whole point of this game was, like 4-player Sonic. Oh my god, this would be horrible with 3 or 4 people. Jeez.
I say this with
But
love to the Sonic franchise, Sonic team as a developer, Sega, the Sonic fan community, but only Sonic can mess up a camera in 2D when it's usually only 3D platformers that mess up their cameras. Only Sonic can find a way to mess it up in a flat plane. Only Sonic. Like, that's insane. Like, remember when every game started going 3D? It's like, oh, we can't figure out the camera, but in 2D, it's always perfect. Sonic found a way to mess it up the other way. Crazy.
yeah, to be fair, Mario Wonder does do this as well sometimes. Like, it's also not
But don't they
perfect
just bubble you
in where.
back?
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, depending on like where you are on the screen, sometimes you're going. Like I said, sometimes you're going the right way,
Mm-hmm.
but your partner's the one that's locked onto, and then they go a different way, and it like obscures your vision. Then suddenly you die, or you don't know where you are,
Okay, yeah.
or you just get bubbled away from where you're supposed to go. So that unfortunately still hasn't been perfectly figured out, but at least because you're not running at high speeds half the time in Mario Wonder, it's almost not a big deal. Like it's almost like
It's like
negligible.
moot, yeah. Or close to moot.
Yeah, because the camera typically moves really slow, or it's not as fast as Sonic. Because yeah. So man, I can't believe I completely forgot that. Well, all right. I guess now I'm done.
Well, now here comes a question. Since we're already talking about what you're playing, do you want to dive into the other game you have listed here while you're at it?
I guess.
I
I
thought to
mean,
use
yeah, I
that
guess I don't
joke.
have a ton to say about it. But I definitely wanted to mention it. 'Cause, yeah, recently came into a copy of Helldivers 2, and yeah, I thought I'd just check it out. I had like literally nothing to lose. And I played it with my brother, and I remember it being announced during a state of play or something.
Yeah, it was a state of play. Or
But
Game Awards, I think, maybe?
oh yeah,
I
I
actually
don't
don't
remember.
remember where it was announced either. I do remember when it was
Hmm.
announced thinking, I didn't know there was a Helldivers 1. but that's as far as
Yep,
as
same
far as
here.
my train of thought went. Yeah.
Yeah, apparently that one is like a top-down shooter or something like
Yeah, it's a
that.
twin stick shooter.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and this one is like a third-person shooter, or I guess first-person as well. But essentially, I knew very little about this game. I just started hearing a ton of buzz about it. Like everyone at work was playing it. Other friends that I knew were playing it. And yeah, so we played it, and basically it's like Starship Troopers. That's probably the closest thing I could think of that I haven't even seen. That's just what it reminds me of. But long story short, all you need to know is that you're just sent on missions to planets to basically survive through waves of giant insects or killer robots, or I don't know if there's anything else beyond those
Actually,
two.
sir,
That's all
you're
I've seen.
spreading democracy.
Oh, you're right. They do say that a lot. Um, yeah, and it's really, really fun. It's half the time it feels like I'm in an action movie. The music does a ton for that. Like it's just so like grand and yeah, pretty much like exactly what you would expect to hear in a movie. Like at the height of an action scene when you're like running away from a horde of like 20 killer robots. And I do like that they have like this I guess system where you have a lot of abilities on cooldown, but you have to access them through a sequence of directional button presses. Like so you're basically inputting like little codes. So if I need more ammo, I could call for a resupply and press like up, down, left, right, or whatever the sequence is. So you could have these memorized, and the better you are at them, the more efficient you'll be, because that's also how you revive a teammate if they die. So if someone dies, you have to input the code to call reinforcement, which just spawns another one of your teammate, and they fall down. They get shot down as a bullet, and they could even control the little bullet's trajectory to like hopefully kill something big on its way down, which is also really cool.
Are
And
those little codes kind of
it is.
like super on the fly, like QuickTime events almost? Like remember when every game had a
Are
QuickTime
those
event?
what?
Are those little codes kind of like doing like super on the fly, like QuickTime events? Like remember when every game had like
Oh,
a QuickTime
kind
event?
of, because like the action is still going behind you. You just have to
Okay,
like
so it doesn't slow down what's going on. It's you choose to do it when you want.
no.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So you just have to be like running while like holding down L1 while with your other finger like pressing the input if you're like running away from something.
Gotcha. Well, that's kind of a cool way to simulate that you
So
have to like be messing with something while in a real kind of like how Zombie
yeah,
was like you're
so
rummaging in the backpack and the game's still going. Yeah.
yeah, so like it heightens like even like because you could just be running without doing anything or just press an easy button, but they wanted to add more stress and anxiety to your actions, so that's
Right.
pretty cool. I don't know how much content there is in total in this game to either, spread all the democracy or whatever causes the credits to roll. But I do know that it's basically a live service game because it does have an expansion or a season pass. It looks like it's just cosmetics like taunts or and little emotes and different armor. But
So is your
yeah,
is your
I
squad
don't.
made up only of like other real players, or is there like a single player mode? Or sounds like if it's a live
No,
service,
it's
it's
always
real
real people,
players.
or you're doing it by yourself.
What was that?
It's you're either doing a mission by yourself or with real
Oh, okay.
people.
So it could be solo. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, but it'll obviously be a lot harder. But yeah,
You playing on
Helldivers 2.
PS5 or PC? It's the first PlayStation game to launch simultaneously on both.
I'm playing on PC with a PlayStation controller. I can't do third-person shooters with mouse and keyboard. It just feels weird.
I can't do anything
I
with
prefer
mouse and
the
keyboard except type. Like I can't use it as
wow.
a controller at all. So I feel
But
you.
yeah, delve into Helldivers and it was fun.
Yeah, the game's blowing up right now. Like it's a huge hit for Sony. It sounds like
Huh.
there are more concurrent players than like every other PlayStation game on Steam combined ever had.
Damn,
Yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah. I think it's outpacing Power World at the moment in Steam
Yeah,
sales.
and the crossplay is like really handy because my brother has it on PS5 and I have it on PC, and we can still play together.
Right, right.
So, yeah.
Nice. I'm kind of surprised, Kevin, that this sounds like a game that you would try. I'm surprised you haven't tried it, or have you?
No, I definitely want to. I just right now I just don't have the time, especially with
That's fair.
our season about to start.
Right, totally fair. It'd be a bad time to invest in a new game. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still playing Persona 3 Reload. I want to get into that Grand Blue Fantasy game that just came out too. So just too little time for so many things going on in my life.
Angel, do you have any games right on the horizon that you're running? Like he was saying about Grand Blue, is there anything you're kind of chomping at the bit to jump into as your next game?
I mean, I kind of want to play through Ghost Trick again, but I also did get the Remember game.
You got another
I forget
code?
what they... Another code.
You got
there
another
go.
code. Oh, okay. Did you ever play Trace Memory, like the original version of it on DS?
I bought it, but I never got around to playing it.
Ah.
Yeah, I played through another game first called like Time Hollow.
Oh,
I was
yeah,
just
I
going
remember
through that
Time
phase
Hollow.
of just looking for everything that was a graphic novel. You know, 999, Purchase as Reward, and all that.
Right. Yeah, I feel like you're going to like Another Code. Recollection, I think, is the fuller name. Another Code Recollection.
Yeah, I mean, I like that it has both games in it, so that's definitely very convenient.
Yeah, and it's like a full remake. I mean, it's basically a full remake. Like everything, all the cutscenes are redone. Everything's 3D. Everything's modern.
Yeah. I mean, and I still want to play Mario RPG. I just haven't even purchased it. I mean, obviously, Tears of the Kingdom, I feel like I should play at some point. And obviously Pikmin 4. Jesus. And those are just games I don't even own.
Mario RPG is probably the next one on my list. I might try and play that when I'm going on a trip in a few weeks. I might try and play that on the plane. But funny story with Mario RPG, I wasn't planning to get it at all. And then one of my friends was like, oh, if you use like Rakuten or one of those websites, you can like, it's basically a pyramid scheme. But he's like, yeah, I bought it through there. And he didn't tell me he got credit if he referred me. He was like, yeah, if you buy it through there and then get it through Macy's, it's like $40 off the game. And then you get this other bonus. It's like we both did. And we're both like, cool. We got Mario RPG for like $11 each, like a month after launch. This is awesome. And then they don't pay you out till February. And when it came time to like pay back the credit through this website, it went from like $47 back to $9.92. I'm not really sure where the other amount went. But that's when me and him realized we basically got scammed because we were told we were getting like $45 back and the game was like $15. And in reality, the game was still $50 and we got like $10 back. So don't use Rakuten is my point. But do maybe get Mario RPG.
Wait, so you didn't save any money at all?
We saved $10. Okay. Which like, I mean, it was already on sale on like Amazon for $10 off, like without the hassle of all this. So yeah, but it's just like, yeah, it could have been such a good deal. But as a result, I now do own the game. You know, I wasn't planning to necessarily get it, which is odd because usually I buy all the Mario RPGs. So I maybe will report back soon and let you guys know what I think of it. But yeah. So I guess that's it with what's being played or been played. This feels so much like the old format of the podcast because like normally we'd go from what we're playing to like if you want to go way back to the old format, we'd go into like what's going on with Nintendo, and that would be like the name of the news segment. I actually do kind of want to bring that back. Just for this episode, but not as the name, not as a rhetorical device. I mean, like literally, what is going on right now with the game industry? Because it feels like everything we thought we knew about how the industry plays out and how it works and how like the patterns you're used to seeing is getting turned on its head. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Starting with the saner one, which is Nintendo.
Yeah, do tell.
Yeah, I mean, they normally, well, you guys know, Nintendo normally loves to follow a very specific pattern, right? Like they have their preferred release weekends for the holiday. Shout out to the third weekend of November. That's that weekend. You know, their preferred months and days that you can almost always guarantee there'll be a Nintendo Direct or an Indie World Showcase. They're to flow a big game and small game. If you learn that cadence, you kind of know when the heavy hitting games will arrive, whatever they may be. You know, if you keep tabs on Nintendo long enough, and you can kind of know what and when to expect things. Except now we're in the 7th going on 8th year of the Switch, which is a first for Nintendo, and you know for any console theirs, and we're entering some uncharted territory. Like I know it's harder to figure out what Nintendo's doing, and I do mean that in both good and bad ways. So on the good side, I'm going to use this opportunity to slip in some financial report stuff. It's been a while since I talked about sales numbers. Don't attack me. But you know they put out their financials for the holiday season, so October till end of December. And after this many years, you know, 7 going on 8, the console is still selling at a rate that's breaking records. Like Switch is now Japan's best-selling console ever, period. And it's like in history. And the sales are slowing, but they're still positive enough that Nintendo actually raised their forecast for the rest of the fiscal year.
Finally did it?
It did it. It did it. Yeah, and they're expecting more. Like
ever?
for Japan. Next on the list is doing it for the world. So right now we're at 139 million Switches.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Oh, no, just Japan. We're at 139 million Switches. They anticipate 141 million by March, end of March 31st, end of the fiscal year. They're planning this without any price drop, right? So if they're at that number with no price drop, in a year or two, depending on how Nintendo plays it, Switch could easily surpass PS2's lifetime sales, could quite possibly surpass DS to become the single best-selling game system of all time in the world, which would be crazy. But again, that's somewhat, the last couple of years, you could kind of see Switch on that trajectory. Initially, maybe not, but that's kind of what we come to expect is the thing just keeps selling somehow. And with those hardware numbers, there's the install base growing. There's still that Switch bump of software where, a new entry in an old series somehow does better on Switch than anywhere else. And that's still true here. Unlike in other Nintendo consoles where, sales this late in the console's life would fall off a cliff. Looking at you, Wii. The Wii's later games did not perform well. But here at the Switch, you've got Mario Wonder. Strongest launch quarter for any 2D Mario ever. Nearly 12 million copies in about 10 weeks. We were just talking about Mario RPG. It sold over 3 million copies in 6 weeks. Possibly because people were scammed like me. Possibly not. But it's already surpassed the lifetime sales of the original version on the Super Nintendo. It's the fourth best-selling Mario RPG ever across any of the entries, and it did that in 6 weeks. You got Mario Kart 8, still an evergreen giant, 3.5 million copies just over the holidays. So, still to this day, half of all Switch owners roughly own Mario Kart. That number, it just keeps growing in tandem with the Switch. But then there are, some cracks in the facade, and this is where things are, maybe not quite as predictable with Nintendo. There are cracks that, when I was looking at the numbers, to me point to arguably the market being ready for a newer Switch, like a Switch 2 sooner than later. I think one of the biggest tells is that the long tail of newer games isn't matching that of older games. The drop-offs are happening faster and sooner. The most notable being Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. This is something I first noticed, actually, last financial report, but the pattern continued into this holiday one. So the game had quite a front-loaded performance. It sold an insane 18.5 million copies in the first quarter. Then it dropped down to just 1 million in the next quarter, which, a million is still a lot, don't get me wrong. But then during the holiday quarter, you would think that sales would be back on the up and up because people are buying it as gifts. It went down again and it only sold 780,000 units. And to be fair, I should put that only in air quotes because many developers would kill for sales of 780,000 in a quarter, or now the game is 20 million in 9 months. Any game would love to have that. It's crazy good. It's the second best selling Zelda ever. But, and it's a big but it doesn't have the legs that other earlier Switch games did. Even in the same holiday season, Breath of the Wild, the precursor to Tears of the Kingdom, still sold 460,000 units versus Tears selling 780. I have to imagine Nintendo thought that gap would be bigger this holiday, that Tears would do way more, at least double what Breath of the Wild did at the same time, but it wasn't there. I mean, Pikmin 4 is kind of a similar story, weirdly. Nintendo put a lot of marketing muscle behind it. It was rewarded 3.3 million in sales. That's awesome. Best-selling Pikmin game in the franchise's history. This past quarter, 720,000 units. That's a lot of games. It's only 40,000 more than Super Mario Party sold in the same holiday. How did Super Mario Party, a game that Nintendo hasn't marketed for years, that had a sequel already come and go with Superstars, how did that sell neck and neck with something so heavily pushed as Pikmin 4 this many years later? Something's going on where the people that are buying these games in 2023 are buying them up front, and then they just kind of fall off a cliff a little, relatively speaking. And it's not to say that Pikmin or Zelda aren't performing well. They are, but so many of Nintendo's flagship releases are created, and we've seen it time and time again for the last 7 years of Switch. So many are created with this idea of long tail success, and the previous barometer for Switch, the 2023 releases just are not hitting those highs. Never mind the number of smaller releases that kind of went under the radar. WarioWare. Do you guys remember in November we got a new WarioWare? I kind of forgot, but Move It came out in November. Get It Together, when it came out in 2021, by the end of 2021, by the end of that holiday season, it sold 1.2 million copies. Move It, granted with a little less time under its belt, but it's somewhere under 1 million. Too low for Nintendo to report. Detective Pikachu, the remake, or the sequel, I guess, also MIA on the report.
It came out already?
Yeah, in October. Didn't make a dent. Didn't show up in the report. new Pokemon Snap, the quarter came out, so like I think 1 million. Detective Pikachu nowhere to be seen. So the situation that we're kind of in now, or that Nintendo's kind of in, is there's a breaking of the pattern that we and I think Nintendo have come to expect with Switch games, which would feed into maybe the Switch 2 is coming because that'll get people excited and buying things longer term. But then, like I was saying at the top, Angel, I think you won the bet. Originally, so many sources were pointing to a 2024 release. Nintendo insiders that, like Kit and Krista who worked there were like, yep, 2024. This would allow Nintendo to just segue right into a newer Switch, newer ground floor releases that can then become evergreens with long tails themselves. Put that out now, this year, just kind of never have a gap. Nope, not happening. On Friday, a bunch of sites with a bunch of sources were saying that Nintendo has told third parties it's being delayed until Q1 2025. So I owe you $1, Angel, if that pans out. But it would mirror how the original Switch. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you were right, but I feel like you kind of fell into being right, unless you knew they were going to delay it. I think you were arguing it was never coming this year. It sounds like it was until it wasn't, type of thing.
I mean, either way, I'm right.
You are right. But yeah, and to be fair, like, early Q1 2025, that worked well for the Switch in 2017. Everyone thought it'd come in 2016. It got delayed to 17. Had a really great launch lineup. Like, I don't know if it's the hardware or the software that's causing this now little shift in the schedule, but it does mean Nintendo could have another really good year like 2017, where it's just big game after big game after big game, giving Switch 2 all this momentum right out the gate. And that'd be fine. But on the flip side, like, it kind of leads to an interesting question. So what does that mean for us Nintendo fans in 2024? Like, the ducks were in a row for Nintendo to wind down Switch sooner than later. Excluding Princess Peach Showtime, every 2024 first-party release that we know of for Switch is a port, a remaster, or a remake at this point. Even the Direct we were talking about at the top of the show, the new Nintendo Direct on Wednesday. Not a normal Nintendo Direct. It's a partner showcase. It's 25 minutes. It's a beefy one. It's not labeled a mini. And I mean, the last time we got a beefy partner showcase that's 25 minutes, we got Monster Hunter, we got Mega Man Battle Network, we got Mario & Rabbids, Live Alive, No Man's Sky, even Fire Emblem Warriors, because technically that's Koei Tecmo, so maybe we get some Nintendo adjacent stuff in this presentation. But it's notable that the February Direct is not going to have a first-party games when traditionally it does. And of what we do know, the pattern of Switch's lineup for 2024 is really like filler versus like AAA new releases, which is fine. It could mean cool stuff like, who knows, maybe we'll get like an F-Zero GX remaster in the same vein of how we're getting Paper Mario 1000 Year Door remastered. That'd be awesome. But I think we're talking that sort of thing, or things at the speed of like rumored ports of like HD versions of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, opposed to like the next flagship Mario. Like, I don't think that's happening this year because, again, if you look at the sales, what Nintendo invests heaviest in for the past 7 years that we can now, see over and over and over until now is stuff that can become evergreen, stuff that has long legs, stuff that, like, they can put out 1 year and continue to profit on for years to come. And this past year, yeah, they'll make some money off that stuff, but it dropped off. So would they rather put out games with legs on a new platform where they could stretch those legs, or at the tail end of Switch's life where, yeah, they can debut strong, but they'll fizzle out faster and not have as longer term of profitability off them? And that kind of conundrum of what do they do, as far as I can recall, I don't remember that being a thing for, like, that's a new value proposition question for Nintendo. Like, usually their consoles die out so much at the end of their lives, again, like the Wii or the Wii U, that they don't get to have this decision. Like, we could theoretically see a flagship game on Switch this year. Maybe they do Donkey Kong tie-in with the theme park expansion. I don't know, but like, would they do that?
Yeah, I'd be perfectly fine with the Switch thinking around. Honestly, I'm not really ready for it to leave.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you, is where you guys stand on this? Because like, they could keep milking it at full speed. It doesn't look like they are, but if they're delaying things, are they gonna?
I mean, considering how much less time I have to even play video games, I would appreciate that they just don't move away just yet.
That's fair. And the other thing that I think everyone always forgets in these conversations, myself included, is like, we're like, oh, what new games are come out? It's all ports and remasters. There are 1.2 billion games sold for the Switch. That's a lot of games for people to play that they probably have in their backlogs. They could go play their backlogs. I still need to play Mario RPG. I still have so many games I could beat. Like we shouldn't necessarily care when is Switch 2 coming because there's still so much to do on Switch 1, even without them putting out the flagship Donkey Kong this year. But in terms of their business side of things, it's an interesting spot to be speculating about for like the armchair Nintendo nerds like myself, because from the business side, they haven't been quite in this position. They don't need, like, I don't know if you remember the back half of like the Wii U era. They did the classic NES, they did the classic Super Nintendo, and those were to fill an empty lineup because they needed to make money that year for the holidays. They needed to put something out. They might not need to do that in the same way with Switch, but like, what does that look like? Like, what do they do? It's all new, so that's a bit different, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes. It's kind of all very unpredictable, which has some, unpredictability can be kind of fun. Like, we don't know what to expect from Nintendo. We're just kind of along for the ride, but it's unpredictable. So you'd rather they hold off on Switch 2 as long as possible, Angel?
Yeah, pretty much.
Would you want new stuff out this year? Or are you cool with just like stuff like another Code Recollection or like, a Twilight Prince?
If anything, I appreciate the ports. That's what I love about the Switch, that it's basically
the all-in-one.
The closest I can get to, the all-in-one.
So does that mean
does
that mean you 100% need, I know you've talked about wanting it before, but like, is no backwards compatibility on Switch 2 a deal breaker for you in that case?
Yep.
Interesting. And Kevin, you don't even play your Switch nearly as much anymore, do you?
I do not.
So you probably are just like, whatever, they'll make whatever they make when they make it, and maybe I'll buy it, right? That's kind
I mean, mainly because I'm a performance hog, so I like my games running as best as they can. And the Switch is lacking some power.
No, that's fair. I'm very interested to see. And another point about unpredictability is like, this might be the first time since the Super Nintendo, where at least on paper it sounds like all they're doing is upgrading the specs of the original system. Like, when they jumped to N64, they introduced like the analog stick and 3D movement and 3D games, and then GameCube they tried to do also. Well, I guess GameCube, N64, GameCube was similar, but like, it's been a while since they've just done like a performance update. So to your desire, I wonder, like, is that all they're going to do? Or are they going to come out with other gimmicks? Like, it's normally you can safely say Nintendo's going to do some weird new control input, but I don't think we're at that era of Nintendo anymore. So it's going to be interesting if it really is just kind of catching up with like Steam Deck performance or that sort of thing at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was one side of like the industry I thought was kind of interesting, like what's going on, because like, I don't know, Nintendo's at a weird crossroads they haven't been at before. Not necessarily bad crossroads, just a notably different crossroads. But if you want to talk real unpredictability of the industry, how about the rest of the industry? Like, Nintendo in the grand scheme of things is in this nice little, like, I kind of describe it as like an Apple-style bubble where their only concern is how to tweak this symbiotic relationship between their hardware and their software in a way that like best maximizes their profit. Like, they're not looking to like, they still know to them hardware and software, like, this marriage they can't break. But everyone else seems to be moving rather quickly into the thought process of, like, I guess to keep the analogy going, like almost like the Android ecosystem of like, how many things can we run our games on because we kind of want to make money on all the things because we kind of need to make that money. So like, how closely have either of you been following what's going on with Xbox and PlayStation the last, let's say, week and a half?
Oof, only very, very lightly.
Okay.
Like, so lightly that I wouldn't even be confident to give an opinion because I
That's fair. I mean, I could catch you up. I can sum it up real quick. Kevin, you been following it at all?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Wait, well, where you made? Well, actually, I'll give a summary and then Kevin, I'm curious what you think of it. So real quick, within days of each other, like literally 24 hours apart, Xbox and PlayStation have both confirmed independently further plans to release more games on more platforms that aren't their own, in a nutshell. So for Xbox, that translates to now, quote unquote, trialing 4 previously exclusive Xbox games as multi-platform releases. And while Phil Spencer, I don't know, it was somewhat comical. Like, he wouldn't say, they do a video announcement about how they're going to do this and their plans to do this, but they won't say what the games are in the video announcement about the plans. But it sounds like it's going to be Hi-Fi Rush, which personally I'm excited for on Switch, along with Pentiment, Grounded, and Sea of Thieves. I bet you 1 or 2 of those show up in the Nintendo Direct on Wednesday. But that's kind of the Sony side. I mean, the PlayStation side and the Sony side, they just said we're going to try and do more and more on PC and try and do more and more, essentially synergize the two and do like a day and date thing, kind of. So, Kevin, what do you make of it all, since you are keeping up with it a little?
Cool. I've like, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I think it's, the more people are out there that are able to play some of these incredible games like Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment, like that's great for everybody. It's great for the industry. It's great for gamers. It's bad for the console war nerds out there.
The tribal,
which is a win in my book. So yeah.
Yeah, and I do think we should emphasize that last episode we touched on that there are a lot of reports and rumors that Xbox's moves could include Starfield and Indiana Jones. And basically every Xbox game under the sun would now be multi-platform, and Xbox would cease to exist as like a like there's all this very dramatic talk. In reality, as of right now, it does not include games of that caliber. But there was, to me, a lot of very careful wording around that in the video podcast they did. So like the first 4 games are for trying out the idea. They won't commit to any games being exclusive forever. Like Phil Spencer believes exclusives will become less and less part of the gaming scene over the next decade, like et cetera, et cetera. Never mind the point we raised last episode that Xbox has been saying for literally years that their strategy has been not their platform being a system, but their platform being an ecosystem, meaning whether it was Game Pass or now these ports, the idea was always for more games in more places. To your point, Kevin, so it's just kind of a matter of time that we get here. What this ultimately feels like to me, in light of how it's now unfolding, is Microsoft is taking the strategy that works for every other thing they make and just applying it to their gaming division. Look at Windows. It's an OS. You can use it on dedicated Microsoft hardware like a Surface, and it'll be all nice and optimized and whatnot. But you know what else you can do with Windows? You can boot up on a Dell, a Gateway, an Asus, a handheld device like a Rocker or whatever, like a Steam, like there's, well, not Steam Deck, they use Linux, but like they have the same features, they have the same functionality. In some cases they even take programs that were originally made for Windows, like the Office suite, for example, and they put it on a competing OS like Mac OS because, hey, that's more people in the Microsoft ecosystem. That's more people you can have information for that you can sell to, you can eventually, potentially convert to more Microsoft products. Like, this doesn't seem that weird as a Microsoft move. It just seems a little different as a game industry move. And to me, everything the Xbox team was talking about in that video podcast the other day just sounded like this. Like, it just sounded like the Windows approach. Like, yes, games will go multi-platform. Yes, Microsoft wants to meet you at whatever screen you're using. They said all this. But then they also had promises of new hardware for those who want, like, the purest Xbox experience. And that's literally what they do with Surface and Windows. So it's really it's a new approach for gaming. But it's not a new approach for Microsoft, like I was saying. I think I think it was interesting because in the video podcast, I think they only touched on part of the reason we're seeing this happen from a business perspective. Like in the podcast, they're saying, how like there's some games that are so big now, so beyond any one hardware platform that they unto themselves are kind of their own platform. And that, kids will play through however they can get hold of these games. They'll play them on whatever device they require, like the Fortnites, the Minecrafts, the Robloxes of the world. They're kind of referencing those without saying it. And I mean, there's that story, I think 2 weeks ago now, that Disney made a $1.5 billion investment into building their own multiverse within Fortnite. Like, you don't have the reach to do that. You're not making $1.5 billion on someone building a world inside your game that's only on a single console. Like, you just don't. Like, that reach goes beyond console walls. And that's kind of some of what Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond and the other guy, Matt Booty, is that his name? Great last name. But I think that's somewhat what they're touching on. But I think that's only one of the reasons. That's the reason they were saying. But I think one of the reasons Microsoft didn't say is what Sony actually said. So like I was saying before, for your reference, Angel, the day before the Xbox podcast thingy, Sony put out their financials. And among comments about how, like, the PS5 is already in the later stage of its life, which that's wild to think about, but I guess pandemic time messes everything up. But yeah. But amongst that, they also talked about how hardware sales are declining faster than they anticipated. They won't have any, and I quote, new major existing franchise titles launching at all in fiscal year 2024. And their new president talked about how they want to be more open for these synergies that result in more multi-platform releases from first-party studios, specifically on PC, all being done in the most blunt way he could put it, to help operating profit to improve. So if you couple that also with something CNBC reported today, PlayStation's, I guess their operating margins are 6% when they were gunning for 20%, in part due to lower sales of games than anticipated. Like, there's a picture forming here when you take all that into consideration, when you take into what Microsoft's saying, and that picture is, I think, AAA games are just too big, too pricey, have too long of development times. It's way too much for a single platform. Like what's hitting PlayStation hard right now is that they poured a ton of money into games that aren't fully recouping their costs. They take so long to make that they're literally going to miss an entire fiscal year of releases because they don't have any because they're all taking so long. And there aren't, in and of themselves, these games aren't enough to drive enough people to purchase the console they're on. Even though the games are objectively very, very good. It's just not enough. Like the amount, like it's like they exceeded like the I don't know what I'm looking for here. You know what I mean? Like they're buying off more than they can chew here. And I think what's hitting Microsoft, and not so many words, is the same thing. Like how many first party Xbox games are actually making it out in a timely manner? Like how many times has Microsoft had to promise they're going to improve the situation of first party releases and then nothing changes? Like how many people needed to buy Xboxes or subscribe to Game Pass to justify the cost of Starfield or buying out Bethesda or buying out Activision? You know, like maybe Game Pass subs could have offset some of that when the budget was first drawn up. But at that point in time, Microsoft was gunning for a lot more growth than they saw. I remember reading somewhere they were hoping for like growth in a 70% range, and they ended up with something closer to like a 28% range at one point. So like going multi-platform, trying out different things, it does sidestep this issue. It maintains Xbox's vision of like every screen can be an Xbox. And then Sony doing like day and date stuff, like Helldivers that you were talking about. Day and date, PS5 and PC. More concurrent players than any other PlayStation PC release, outpacing Palworld. Like it's showing that there is an appetite. Gamers don't care what they're playing on. There is an appetite to just put these games in front of more people when possible, bring in extra money that way, and not necessarily use them as a way to sell consoles, because that doesn't seem to matter as much. They can't recoup the cost fast enough to balance that. So it's going to be really interesting to me to see what this means for the console market going forward. Like whether Xbox is doing the full Windows style approach of like software plus optimized hardware, but also you could play it on other hardware. Like that would be kind of interesting. Is that going to also work for Sony because they're kind of dabbling in that with the PC stuff? And if all that pans out, does that mean like Nintendo really is the Apple of gaming, and yet in other ways they'll become, you know, the only company left seeing a strong benefit from this idea of like hardware and software go hand in hand and have to go hand in hand? They're the richest company in Japan right now, Nintendo. So it's clearly working for them. They don't have to worry about this other stuff. Their game budgets don't seem as inflated as some of these other guys. But it's going to be really interesting to see. Like, just like it's going to be kind of interesting to see what's going on with Nintendo short term with Switch versus Switch 2's timing. Like, I think long term, this is a big shift for gaming if this pans out. Like, gaming's been a certain way for like 25 years. It's industry precedent, the console wars and all that. And that's about to fly out the window, potentially. And that's going to be really interesting to see, like, where it lands and what that turns into, and whether we are going to move past the idea of, as you put it, kind of like having the console wars and console warriors. So, yeah, that's what I've been ruminating over for the last couple, I guess, week and a half, as all this stuff has surfaced. It's really interesting to me. I'm very curious. You know, stuff like E3 dying and like the idea that you're not going to have the two booths with like the PlayStation and Xbox logos side by side. It's going to be used in every photo of every, like, you know, console war article. Like that will be a relic of the past potentially if this all pans out how it seems. So very, very, very curious where this is going to go. But that's my spiel.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you finally get to breathe.
Yeah. But yeah, so now that you know a little more about it, Andrew, you kind of have the opinion of like wherever you can play it you want. I mean, you're already doing it. You're playing PlayStation games on your PC.
Yeah, literally whatever's more convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sony still got a DualShock sale from you, or a DualSense sale, because you're using a DualSense. So there you go. Yeah.
Sure.
It's so interesting to me.
Everyone wins.
Yeah, exactly. Which, again, is what, to Phil Spencer's credit, is what Microsoft's been trying to preach for like 4 years, ever since Xbox One kind of floundered and they reset. This has been their message. It just seems like the rest of the industry is realizing it now, too. And if you wanted to really wonder about it, you could make a case of a lot of the reason the layoffs are hitting the industry so hard right now, and Embracers, you know, buying up and then immediately shutting down some of these studios, is like the industry is not built for this scale of game, this infrequent release at this high of a price with this much of a gamble if it has to work or not. So it's
Never thought I'd live to.
Yeah.
Never thought I'd live to see the day that there's a company hated more than EA. But fair enough, Embracer.
Yeah, I mean, they made such a dumb comment the other day where they were basically blaming the developers for their portfolios. They're like, yeah, we bought them, but like their games weren't good enough. It's like, well, why did you buy that? That's not their fault. You bought them. You chose them, and then you shut them down. Just don't buy them. Like, what? They were doing fine before you came into it. Like, what are you talking about? So, yeah, it's Embracer's the worst. Were they the ones, Kevin, that also said something along the lines of, like, our number one goal is, like, growth for our shareholders versus, like, actually, like, releasing products?
Yeah, that was them.
Yeah, it's such a mess. And they own Lord of the Rings, which is weird.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they bought the IP for Lord of the Rings. Yeah. When they were, I mean, their name was very fitting for a few years. They were just embracing everything. They were anything, they buy it, no questions asked. And now it's all falling apart.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all I had today. Was there any other topics we wanted to discuss? I say after, let me catch my breath. That's a lot. But anything else you guys want to bring up today?
No, not that I could think of.
Yeah, no, just a very uneventful 2 weeks for me.
They happen. I feel like if the industry wasn't turning inside out, I wouldn't have had much this period either. So I feel you.
Well, I guess that'll do it.
I guess so. We'll keep it a little short today. We'll let people spend time watching Nintendo Direct instead of listening to us. So to make sure you can catch our impressions of that Nintendo Direct in the future, you could follow us on all the podcasting apps. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, YouTube. You can find us at Random Nintendo. That is also our Twitter handle at Random Nintendo. And individually, if you want a real-time thought, well, my slightly close to real-time thoughts, plus whenever these two happen to watch the Direct. I'm JSR7 on Twitter and Threads. Kevin is KVN Gomi on Twitter. And Angel is World of Weros on Instagram, where he does art representing his thoughts. So he might not actually do it. You might not do it. You wouldn't draw anything for Nintendo Direct, would you?
Probably not, unless it was something Rhythm Heaven related.
Well, it won't be this one unless they outsourced it to an indie or something.
Well,
yeah. So you won't see his thoughts anywhere is, I guess, the real takeaway. But, yeah, that just about does it. Heads up for those expecting us every 2 weeks. There's a lot of travel. Kevin alluded to it at the top. I'm going to be on 2. So not sure when that next episode will hit, but as long as you follow us on all those channels, you will ensure you don't miss it whenever it comes. So I guess that's about it. I'm going to give final word to Kevin as usual.